If you're calling fall off business, then man, I need a flathead and a hammer.
You're running out of tools
huge toe box.
Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Life Insurance Academy podcast. I'm your host, Austin Lopes-Severo, and I'm here with Chris Ball, Zach McElwain, and Roger Short. The LIA podcast takes you into the conversations of top producing life insurance agents so that you can level up your business. For episode notes and resources, visit liapodcast.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Life Insure Acad. We're also excited to offer text notifications for episode releases and resources that will help you in your business. All you have to do is send LIA to 82149. That's 82149 for the recipient, and the letters LIA for the message. We'll send you a quick confirmation. Text, and you're all set. Furthermore, if you have questions or if there's a topic that you would like us to discuss, respond with your idea or visit liapodcast.org/feedback. Speaking of audience topics, on today's episode, we'll be jumping back into the topic and maybe even a series of telesales that we started on last week's show. If you missed episode 13, make sure to go back and listen as we cover preparation, how to get more people on the phone, and how to establish credibility with a client to make the sale. Today, we're diving into how to make the sale, including components of a script, keeping control of the call, telesales carrier considerations, and more. Let's dive in. So today's world no doubt looks night and day different than what any of us could have predicted a few months ago. Guys, will you give a little bit of backstory about the process that we're talking about today and how it came about, how you tested it, and really why people should follow it?
So I think everybody kind of needs to understand that first, our primary business as of a month ago was going up to the doors, smiling, waving, knocking on a door, introducing ourselves to a client, and doing a presentation. But hey, gang, we're all learning as we go.
I know.
In this new process. And our scripts that we've developed are part of our experience. Some of it's together as a team. I mean, one of our values as our organization is voices matter. And we pay close attention to what our agents are experiencing in the field. And when we say in the field now, we mean on the phone. And also consultations, some conversations, some guidance from our telesales partners. We've learned a lot throughout this process.
I mean, this is our journey. So if you're listening today, well, even if you just heard me say that you are listening, that's such a stupid statement to make.
I'm leaving that in there.
I know. Let's just leave that in there. You know, there's some stupid stuff that comes out of my mouth many times. Listening today, you will be able to associate with us in the fact that you're trying to figure out how to make this transition. Simply because the world of life insurance agents that we speak to for the majority of our past 9 years has been setting appointments or doing door knocks to establish appointment, rapport, go in the home, do a presentation, sit in their living room, chat with them, go to their kitchen table. And now because of the coronavirus, COVID-19, and stay at home orders in a lot of states, you know, that's our world has changed. The ground has shifted. So we are adapting. And yes, we have scripts. But everybody's learning. Everybody's having to make the transition. And, Chris, there are telesales call centers that have a very scripted format. Yeah. It's a very dialed in process. They use a CRM. They have programs for lead generation, call transfers. It's super scripted. They want you to stay on point. And that works in that environment for those people. If you're an independent life agent and you've never had any experience of that, you look at a script sometimes and it could be like completely overwhelming. Like, I'm supposed to read this word for word? Like, this is not who I am. It doesn't even feel right in your DNA.
Hi, my name is Austin from Senior Benefit Services. How are you?
By the way, that's what Austin sounded like at the beginning of this podcast.
So it feels wrong in your DNA, especially if you're a connector. If you're someone who's used to being in front of people and using, your presence and your engagement with them, if you love people, if you like interacting and connecting with people, you feel like you have part of your arsenal like removed, like you're like in a fight with your hands tied behind your back. You don't know how to operate. So looking at a script can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
However, I will tell you this, our scripts work. They work because there are fundamental pieces in a call script, just as there are fundamental pieces in a final expense presentation, visually, and in a mortgage protection presentation. There are fundamental pieces that you must cover. And once you know what those components are and you stay on track, you cover those components and interject yourself, who you are as a person, your personality, and you make it your own, your call script works.
And I think initially when we started training our team, because it was new for us, we were recommending following the script to a T. Like, this is the rule, this is the order, and part of it I think is, it's new for us, and you have to trust the tool to move forward. And I think since then, especially for me, like I joke, I've joked in the past that I had
you joke
by on my person. Yeah, I know it's shocking. I'm a very serious man who takes serious things seriously, but I know exactly what you're talking about, Roger, of that feeling of having a hand tied behind your back, because I have to connect and engage with people. And I think since then, I've treated the script more as a guideline, and we as a group have adapted to each client in our conversations, and whether we needed to move quickly because of some call control issues, we'll get to that, or whether we needed to slow down and connect, or whether we could just laugh with somebody. So we're adapting, and we're all adapting.
I think the script is a lot like training wheels on a bicycle. It's just something to give you a little bit of confidence. Okay, you follow this path. If you lean a little bit too much this way or that way, it kind of keeps you on track. And it's no different than new agents, or even when we started, if you're in a group or if you do use a presentation in a face-to-face sell, it's exactly the same. When you're unfamiliar with it, when you're trying to get things rolling, you're going to be not as smooth. You're going to be going through that presentation or that script and not really understanding the feel or reading your client. But as we know, just like in training wheels or a presentation in the home, the more confident you get, it just becomes a guideline. It becomes, you're able to do that presentation face to face in the home, but knowing exactly what it says and when it says it and how it says it without having to look at it every single time.
Right.
The script to me is exactly the same, because once I'm familiar with what you said, Roger, with the different types of calls, if it's calling existing business to check in on them, if it's calling fall off business, if it's calling brand new business, it's exactly the same except for the placement of the script. And when you can understand that and you can read your client and okay, well, this is a part to gather some information or confirm the information that we've already received through a request, or this is a part to start building some rapport and some trust with the client. Once you understand that, you already know what you're doing, and you can kind of feel your way through it. It's there. Like when I'm doing it, I'm not reading it like a robot going through every step. I know, okay, the first part, this is what I want to establish. The second part, now this is what I want to establish. And it's pretty much different every time. I mean, when I'm making a phone call, you're not going to hear two phone calls that are exactly alike from me.
No. I mean, I think for most of our listeners, you're either feel like you're in free fall because you don't have a script at all. And what do I say? How do I open up this call And so we've got great resources available. If that's you, reach out to us, connect with us. We'll get you set up. And then there are others who you may have a script. You may be working with an organization that has a script, but you've never done it before. And you're looking at this thing, and it makes you nervous, like it's the first time riding a bike, Zach. For someone who's never ridden one before, especially as an adult, to try to get on and ride a bicycle, it's hilarious. If you've ever seen an adult that's never ridden a bike before, like I remember when I was a kid trying to watch my dad, who's never rode a bike in his life, tried to ride a bike. It was like the most embarrassing, awful thing ever, because this is your dad, this big, strong man. He's like, and it's not right. And that's what it would look and feel like. If you ever watch someone like that, like an adult, try to do something that they've never done before, it's you can see the tension rising in them, right? Maybe it's like standing and jumping off of a short cliff into you may be swimming somewhere in a quarry, and all of a sudden you're doing something that makes you fearful. And a lot of people get that tension that builds up, and that is paralyzing because they're thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this. When in fact,
Roger,
it's just words on paper. That's all it is. Just read
Roger,
the words.
is that
right?
because later in that stage, you assume that everybody else knows how to do it except for you, and maybe you feel embarrassed or that you have to learn it right away,
And
or you're going to be left behind? Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people may be working, paid leads of some kind, and so they don't want to screw up the lead. So then they're not making a phone call at all, which is screwing up the lead, right?
Yeah.
So, like, the worst thing you can do is not call. That's the worst thing. The best thing you can do is call and figure it out as you go. Right. So at the very outset of this, Austin, I want to come back to you and say the thing about scripts is you just got to pick up the phone and start and use what's in front of you. If you don't have one, reach out, understand the importance of the guidelines of the script, what you need to cover, and make it your own. You have to embrace it.
And when understanding that there's going to be multiple calls. We know we're talking to people who have books of business. We know we're talking to people who don't. We know we're talking to people who have fall off business where somebody had canceled a policy. And the great thing is there's a way to approach each one of those people. And it's a little different, but we're trying to accomplish the same thing in helping bring some peace of mind to them. And we do it simply by grabbing their attention and connecting with them. So we want to grab their attention and connect. And throughout the script, if you've heard anything from us in these past 13 episodes, we're going to address all 5 reasons people buy and don't buy. It's always going to come back to that.
All the time.
And if a script isn't solving that problem, you will get off the phone and not know and why you didn't get a sale. And if you don't know, there's no way to get better. There's no way to improve. And you're just kind of swimming in circles.
Mm.
That's called treading water, which eventually you drown.
Yeah.
Stay there.
So it sounds like when we look at script and practicing and training, we have this bike analogy, but it's also kind of like the craftsman toolbox, right? Like you can have one in your garage, but if you don't know how to use each one of those tools, or you don't know where that tool comes into place or the order, right? Like it doesn't mean anything, right? And so learning the script is understanding, okay, during this call, I know that I have these tools available that I can utilize and use at any point to get to this final built product, right? So you know where you're trying to get to, but that client might throw in a different request, right? Like if you're building a house and they're like, no, I want 2 bedrooms instead of 3, but I want an office, and right, like you're going to adapt with every call, but you have to know how to use the pieces and what to put together to build that final product.
And so just to bring clarity to all of this, if you're calling people who are on your books and you're looking to add coverage, there's a script for that. And we have that tool. So it's almost like, man, this job needs like a socket wrench and a Phillips screwdriver. Great, I have that. If you're calling fall off business, then man, I need a flathead and a hammer.
You're
You
running
must
out
have a
of tools
huge
that you know.
toolbox.
Yeah.
We're talking to a non-building, non-carpenter, non-mechanic, and he's trying to use tools.
Yeah.
He just
You
visually
get the
pictured the
picture.
4 tools in his
You
toolbox.
know what I'm talking about. But overall, each job requires the correct tool for that job. And don't be afraid to reach out. And if you just even need to have a conversation, we can make that happen and get you the script that you need.
Let's dive into what those tools or parts of the scripts are that agents should be comfortable with and implementing in their call.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important to look at this outline and these key components. This is our recipe for a spicy meatball. But as far as the opening goes, we want to remember that what is it that people think about when they pick up the phone? Who's calling me and what the heck do they want? So we have to get to that quickly, who we are, who we're with, and why we're calling. And after we've established that, we want to confirm their request for information. Recently, you sent in a request about the state-backed burial plans to take care of final expenses, or just a few hours ago, you sent that in, and we've had so many requests recently. We got backed up. I'm sorry it took me so long to reach back out to you, something along those lines, but we just want to bring it to their attention. And then we want to be human beings and check on their family and kind of talk through like what's happened with this COVID crisis and how they're handling it and how we're handling it and with our families. Sometimes I've joked with people that, you may hear my dog in the background or my kids playing. I'm working from home just like everybody else at this point. And then we're going to establish some trust and credibility. We talked about this last week about the importance of having a, what do you call it, Roger?
Profile page, yeah.
Yep. We talked about last week how important it was to be able to direct people to a profile page that shows that you're with a credible company, and also to give them your national producer number to show that you are a registered life insurance agent, that you're able to advise them. So this goes back to the 5 real reasons why people don't buy, and it goes back to building that trust on the front side of this conversation of people knowing who you are, that you're a credible person to talk to, and that they can see you and trust you.
So if you got the trust built on the opening, right? That trust will carry you into the rest of the conversation. It kind of allows the whole conversation to happen. But you're on the phone for a reason. You're on the phone for business, for as Chris says, Bidness. Roger, what does that Bidness part of the conversation look like?
Well, it's going to take you down a path, okay? It's leading you in a direction. And I kind of open that with establishing the fact that underwriting qualifications and guidelines right now are tightening up. There are, cost increases coming. Insurance companies are nervous. I mean, we are in the middle of a global pandemic that's going to affect mortality rates. If people have ever considered putting any additional coverage in place, now would be the time to do that. And we're establishing a sense of urgency with what's going on with clients, with the insurance companies. We're receiving notifications that they're adding additional questions, respiratory questions. Do you have an unexplained cough? Have you been exposed to anybody? Have you self-isolated? These are all things that are now coming into play, and it allows us to have a conversation with these people, regardless of who they are, about the landscape that we're all in together. And so while I'm calling you, I also want to let you know that things are tightening up on our side, and here's why. And then depending on who you're on the phone with, you're going to be going in one of 3 directions, either adding coverage with an existing client, or maybe putting business back in place of some business that has fallen off the books. You've gone through your list of clients and you realize some of them have actually fallen off, and you're going to say, hey, we need to get you back in place. Or then lastly, probably the biggest one that has most people's interest is that new business. What do I do with new sale opportunities? And that's any unretired leads that you might have, any direct mail or digital. And even in that space, it's going to feel and look a little bit different. On a direct mail lead, you've got to bring them back to the point of recognition of why they filled out that card or why they submitted that several weeks ago, maybe several months ago, to bring them back to that place of emotion. Chris talks about emotional excavation, getting back to the emotion of how they were feeling when they requested that. And you have to take the script and allow you to go to that place where you're uncovering that. On a digital lead, that's more in real time. In some cases, you're calling these as almost same day in some instances. That emotion is more immediate and you can get direct to the point quicker. Just like one of the clients that I had last night that hit us with a digital lead. An hour and a half later, I was calling and responded to her request, and I apologized that it took so long. And she said, I just requested this an hour ago online. But I let her know because of the high volume and the number of clients we've been servicing, because of the importance people feel to get their life insurance in place and the priority that people have on that I was delayed in getting back to her, but I'm glad I can. And then it allowed me to then follow the script down that path. So it's really understanding who you're talking to and then taking it in the direction of that specific script.
So once you go through the conversation with who you're talking to, and you've outlined, dive, as we always say, dive into the 5 real reasons why people don't buy and talk about their need for coverage, then you're going to move into the qualification and the application. Zach, what does that look like for telesales?
Well, you need to know you're probably not going to use all the same carriers that you did if you were previously doing face-to-face sales in the home, because the most important thing we have to do is we have to keep it simple for us, but we also have to keep it simple for our clients. So we need to know which carriers that are in our lineup or in our toolbox that we're able to do non-face-to-face sales. Some of the simplest ones that you can do are going to be ones that take just over the phone, a complete phone application where there's just voice authorizations and voice signatures, so you don't have to see anything. But you are still able to use carriers that will accept a non-face-to-face e-signature through an email address. So those are options as well. But keeping in mind, you don't want to get into a process that's going to involve mailing anything back and forth to a client. You don't want to get involved in something that's going to frustrate the client or delay the process, such as if they don't have, if they haven't accessed their email address in years or ever. You don't want to get into trying to train all that and worry about pop-up blockers and all that as well. You want to keep it simple and really get to know your client in that process and understand what their tech capabilities will be. But also, like I said, to have the ability to be able to help any client at any time, non-face-to-face, regardless if they know how to do email address or tech or technology, or just being able to complete everything over the phone and all they need to do is just answer the phone call.
Part of that is, going through the process yourself even. I mean, practicing what a e-app or knowing kind of what that flow would look like, right? So one thing that we did, Zach, that you put together was the app guide for each carrier that you that works for telesales. What are some of those things on that app guide that you outlined?
Well, it's the same thing for us in trying to prepare for all the agents out there in the field as it is for the agent trying to prepare the client for the interview. So on that guide, it's setting the expectations for the agent to say, okay, at this point of the process, we're going to go to this website. We're going to log in here. We're going to click e-application, or we're going to call the client on this phone number. We're going to select option 1 to do a voice signature. We're going to tell the interviewer that it's a 3-way call, and then boom, they're going to ask you about this. They're going to ask you about that, and you need to send them this document through text message, through email, or however you want to do it. It just lines it out and it sets the expectations for the agent, which will give them confidence. Just like a script gives an agent confidence in making that call, this guide is to give them confidence of what carrier to go with and how you go about doing the process. So setting the expectations is crucial, and it's really important to set those expectations for your client as well after you've went through the script and you're now in the qualification, or now you're in the application process. Let them know, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is going to happen next, and I'll walk you through the entire thing. It just kind of puts them at ease and calms them down and lets you know that you're the expert and you're going to walk them through all of this.
So once they've gotten the application, you've served this client and their family. Is it, hey, you got approved, that's awesome, your family's good, and you hang up, or what's that next step look like?
You want to go through a cool down process with your client and revisit some of the important points of, what's going on in their lives. As Zach says, you want to talk about anything but insurance. But at the same time, I believe in affirming their decision. You are a great mother, brother, father, niece, nephew. You are a great person for making sure that the people you care about are taken care of. Many people, they live with the intent of doing something and they feel good about that intention, but very few people take action. And you are a person who took action today, and your family's this is a generational decision that you've made, and it's going to affect them for life. So great job. So that's part of my cool down. But I also want to ask them, who else can I help? I mean, we don't want to be mainline lead junkies. I mean, it's easy to get into a pattern where you're just working leads, but there is so much need out there, so much need. And it's not just by happenstance that your clients are the people who are the ones who need help with their coverage, or they've got the wrong coverage, or they don't have enough coverage. This is a lot of people in the United States, and not only them, it's people that they care about specifically. I mean, these are their family members. We get calls of people who think we wrote a policy for their family and we just left a business card. So we don't want that to happen to them. So just simply asking, who else do you love, do you care about that I can help? Now, I can start with Linda, your niece, or your daughter that you set this plan up for to take care of her. I probably should call her next, but after I talk to Linda, who else should I talk to?
100%, Austin. I want to validate everything that Chris just said, because on one of my simple reach outs this past Friday to existing clients, that exact question that Chris just said, don't forget to do this. I said, who else can I help? And he said, actually, I have a lady right now that I think that needs some coverage. She's a friend, but it's her husband. Let me reach out and I'll get back to you. And a little bit later, I got a text saying, this lady's looking for some coverage for her husband. Would you be willing to reach out? I reached out immediately, no answer. I reached out again, no answer. Reached back out to my client, and they said, try the home number, call the home number, got through. 2 hours later, $3,000 AP on a policy, and was approved right there on the spot. So that happened Friday night before I went home. And it happened after 6 because I followed up right away and called it and got it done. Makes you wake up Saturday morning and say, I am so thankful to be in a business where I can do that, take care of clients and take care of my family, all because I just asked, who else can I help? It matters. It matters.
I feel like if people have been listening to our show for a while, they're going to know two main things: the 5-year-old reasons and referrals. We've hit that on so many episodes, but it's so important to this business. It's so important to what we do.
Absolutely.
Well, Austin, if they know those two things, I mean, one thing we'll know is they'll have profitability.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that an agent can do while on the phone to help with their profitability?
Yeah, when you're on the phone, one of the most important things, if you're face-to-face, it's also important, is to be in control of your environment. If you're acting like the expert, if you're acting like the advisor, and you're taking charge of the situation, people will move forward with you. They appreciate someone who presents themselves as knowing their craft and being confident in where we're going. Okay, and so in the home we call it presentation control, sales control. On the phone we call it call control. And it may sound weird for people who've not done this before. It's not a natural way of talking to other adults. But in this environment, when you're on the phone and you're doing your job, you have to maintain call control, or it can get way off, and you're chasing down rabbit holes, and you will burn up very valuable time, energy, grace that you have with your clients. So things can get off track quickly, and without proper call control, you'll actually struggle to have long-term, meaningful conversation and get into the presentation. It'll lead to frustration and burning good leads and your closing ratios. So, like for instance, when someone asks you a question that you're not ready to answer at that moment, it could be anything. How much is this? Well, can we do this at another time? Or, are these plans all the same? What's the difference between this type of insurance and the other? Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be like, what kind of car do you drive? That's a great question, Miss Judy. And we're going to get into that in just a moment, I promise you, and pivot back to the script. So this is a call control statement. That's a great question. We're going to get into that in just a moment, I promise you. Pivot straight back into the script. If someone makes a statement and they're telling you a story about something and it's kind of open at the end and you are tempted to go in and dialogue more about it with them, again, you're going to burn up valuable time resources. You want to jump back in and say, well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I appreciate it. Pivot back to the script. If you get a situation where they might have some upfront concerns, well, how much is this going to be? Do I have to qualify? I'm not sure I can afford this. I already have life insurance. I've got my burial taken care of at the funeral home. Now, is this the same as regular life insurance? Regardless of what that is, to move past any upfront statements, another call control statement would be, this is just an informational call. My job right now is to get you the information, see what you can qualify for, and we can address that in just a moment. How long is this going to take? This shouldn't take much longer. Pivot back to the script. Anytime you're asked to move this along by people who want more information, well, great, let's get right down to business. How is your health? Pivot back to the script. These are all call control statements that you need to implement throughout the process to keep you on this script / air quotes guideline that we know we need to follow. And so while the script is there as a template, as a track, as a bicycle with nice big training wheels, as a bowling alley that's got the guardrails down the alley so that the ball doesn't go in the gutter.
I need those.
Like that's the script, and you need to keep the ball in the center. And anytime people want to get you off, use that call control statement, bring it back to that script, stay on your guideline, and move through the process. It's important to do that, or else you will use, like I said, you'll use up valuable time and grace that you earned in the trust building phase. Sometimes you can lose that by taking too long or answering questions that really aren't objections, and you get lost in the process. So call control is super important here.
Yeah, a big thing you said there is you aren't answering the objection, you're addressing
the objection.
And I think that's the biggest mindset shift that you have to have when you approach this. Any final tips or thoughts before we kind of open it up to the audience for questions as we wrap going forward?
I do think one last tip, one last little 1999 tip, and because it's Corona Day, we'll knock that down to $7.99 because everybody's on a budget. But the last little tip I would say is you can use technology to validate yourself. I know we referenced this a little bit, but I know Roger has a little bit of a story here versus a phone call and a video call, and the differences between that. Roger, you want to share your story?
Yeah. So, like in this process, I mean, I just look back over the last 5 days, 5 or 6 applications, I believe it was, just over $6,000, all in different segments using digital leads. Some were callbacks, some were referrals, some were mortgage leads, and we're just in mixing it up. We've all
batting the cycle, man.
All of us, and I want to give kudos to all these guys, Chris and Zach, and we've all been writing applications because we committed to learning the process and getting the feedback from clients as it was happening, so we know what our agents are experiencing. We want to be in the hunt, in the trenches, getting this done with them. And man, when you use technology to help bridge the gap, it makes a ton of difference. Using the profile page to send that out, to get them to open that up and see who you are. A photo makes a massive difference. Also, many people are familiar with FaceTime now and doing a Zoom call even, or some type of web call, a Join Me, a WebEx, a GoToMeeting, whatever that is. Whatever simple platform you have, depending on your client, like Zach talked about earlier, understanding the technology ability or desirability of the client to embrace that, you can bring them on. And most parents, even grandparents, are familiar with the FaceTime call. And so you can offer that. And one of the things that I saw was a big barrier remover, was just saying, since this has been happening, we are now all working remote. We are practicing safe social distancing, and we're doing these things over the phone and also offering video calls. Are you familiar with how to do a video call? Have you ever done that with your kids or your grandkids? Well, yeah, we FaceTime all the time. Well, I can actually do that and set up that right now if you want. I can send you a video call. And I will tell you, Austin, the minute they come on and they're seeing you, it changes. It's like you walked into their living room and now they see you and it's like you're their family. Like, because they don't do this with other people that they don't love or care about, but now they're doing it, and you're having a conversation with them face to face. And allows you to connect on a different level. So don't be afraid to use the technology that's at your fingertips. If you're an agent and you're not familiar with how to do that, get your kids and your grandkids on the phone and practice with them so that you can offer that to your clients. It's not a hard process. It's something simple. It's just different. And you're going to feel like it's that bike that you don't know how to ride. But I challenge you, get up on that thing. And after a few times, you'll have a skinned knee, but you'll be fine and you'll be cruising down the sidewalk and you'll be looking cool like Chris in his khakis.
I want to tell everybody, hey, keep practicing and do the work. Just practice for the game. Run through the scripts in a mirror. It's going to be weird, but it'll make you better. And then pick up the phone. I think there are some people who it's a blessing and a curse, but they're perfectionists. And they want to know every in and out. They want to know every rebuttal. They want to know every call control statement. They would like to learn the script in Greek before they start picking up the phone. And they want to have all the answers, but you have to get the boat in the water to find the leaks. You have to. And let me tell you right now, everybody's afraid. Everybody is when they start something new. And what you're feeling is not uncommon. Everybody has those same emotions, but you're going to fail anyway. It's going to happen. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, but it is the best teacher. So give yourself a chance to learn, make the mistakes, and learn as quickly as possible. And I think there was a TED Talk that Malcolm Gladwell's book where he talked about 20,000 hours or 10,000 hours to become a master at something. And then there was a TED Talk that came out that said it only takes about 9 hours to learn how to do something. People focus on this 20,000 hour result when all it takes is just 9 hours of, trying something and getting frustrated and figuring it out. But man, you learned something and you tried something and now you're generating an income because you were willing to do it.
I have nothing to say after that. That was phenomenal.
I know. I'm like ready to run to a wall. Well, thanks, guys, so much. To our audience, we want to know what you want us to dive into further. Our team has put together this kind of roadmap of topics that we were planning on talking about, but we put that on hold during COVID-19 because agent profitability has always been our priority. So we want to know, what can we help you with? What do you have questions on? Send those ideas, send those questions to liapodcast.org/feedback or text them in to us. Send LIA and then your question to the number 82149. Thanks so much for listening to the Life Insurance Academy podcast. For Cliff Notes, resources, and some of the things that we talked about in today's episode, visit liapodcast.org/EP14. That's liapodcast.org/EP number 14. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, rate us 5 stars, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Life Insure Acad. The Life Insurance Academy podcast is hosted, edited, and mixed by me, Austin Lopes-Severo. This episode was produced by Roger Short and myself. Our theme song is by Flashing Lights. We'll catch you on another episode. Until then, stay healthy and go be a difference maker.